Hello everyone, welcome to Kishore Chess Mentor. In today's section, we shall see how to checkmate with king and two bishops. So we know how to checkmate with the king and queen against a king, and we know how to checkmate with king and rook against a king. So it is pretty easy. We can simply say that we can drive the king opponent's king towards any of the four corners, and then it can be either this corner or this corner or this corner or this corner. So we have to drive the king towards any of these corners so that we can checkmate with the king and queen as well as with the king and rook. So likewise for king and double bishops it is kind of the same concept. So but it has some additional things associated to it because as it is kind of diagonal and not related to something like file or rank. So what we have to do is we need to understand the basic idea behind it. Once we understand the concept, so rest is the matter of sheer execution. So we can see how we need to play with this one. So to start with, when we have two bishops, what we need to do is we need to find the connecting diagonal and then we need to take control with the bishops. So connecting diagonal in the sense, let's say for example, here in this position bishop g6 check. So the idea is the connecting diagonals of b1 to h7 as well as c1 to h6. So these are all the connecting diagonals. Okay, so next to next we have the two bishops and both of them are taking control of the connecting diagonals. So can we checkmate with just the two bishops? It is impossible. So what we need to do is we need to have these connecting bishops taking control of connecting diagonals, and in addition to that we need to bring our king towards the opponent's king, and we need to drive our opponent king towards either of the corners. So this is the basic idea behind it. So having said that, we shall see how we can execute this one. So king to e5, and now we have to bring the king. Okay, so without the king it is impossible to give a checkmate. Now king goes and attacks the bishop. So we shouldn't rush the king so much so that we will lose the bishop. So we need to take control of that, and then king e5. So here in this position he brought the king, and now we can pretty much see that it is as if the king is inside a box. Okay, the king is inside this particular box, so that the king cannot cross anywhere. Okay, both the bishops are taking control of this diagonal. So this is the whole idea behind it. Okay, so having said that, in this position bishop f4, the idea is to stop the king from running to f5. Okay, otherwise he will go on between e5 and d4 and he is not going to go towards any of the corner of the board. So that is the whole intention. So he is taking control of the squares so that the king is further reduced to small area. So now in case if he goes on with king c3, king comes to c5, so which means that the king is going towards this particular corner and it is pretty easy for us to give a checkmate. So king c4, and for king c4 bishop here. So again if you see, it is again this couple of connecting diagonals. So earlier the bishop was taking in this particular diagonal, and now the bishop has cut off this one and the king is restricted to a small area again. Okay, so this is the intention. So king here, bishop here. Now you can see that the king is restricted within this one, so the king is further cut off. So it is going towards the corner as well, and king here, and finally there's a corner. Okay, so that corner is nothing but a1 to a8. So we need to see we need to freeze him there. So now king here, slowly bringing the king so that the king cannot go here because it is the bishop. The king cannot go here and escape because there is another bishop. So only move bishop here, taking control of the a3 square, so the king cannot run to a3. King here, bishop here, taking control of the a4 square, so the king cannot go to a4, and king a6, which is the only move. So if you didn't play king c6, probably he can go on with king b7 and he say that okay, I got out of the corner, so then it is pretty easy for me to roam around. Okay, so king c6, taking control of the king from getting escaped. In case if he plays king a5, you can play bishop c3, king here, bishop here. So further you stop the king from getting out with king b8. So king here, bishop here. So here in this position, in case if you rush with bishop d4, it is kind of a stalemate. because the king cannot go anywhere and it is a draw. So we need to see bishop here. In this position, if he goes on with king a7, bishop here, the intention is to stop the king from getting escaped with b8. So king a8, king c7, king here, bishop here, taking control of a6 so that he stops the king from getting escaped like this. King a8, bishop here. This is very important because if you rush with bishop to d4 again, it is going to be a draw, stalemate. So what we need to understand is there are plenty of stalemate options available. The thing is, in order to avoid it, you need to see like when you need to put on a waiting move, kind of a checking distance with your opponent's king so that the king doesn't end up at loss of moves. Okay, so bishop f4, king here, bishop here check, king here, bishop d5 checkmate. Okay, so if you see here, king a5, bishop here check, so it's what we saw, and king a7, we went on with bishop b8. So the whole point is to stop, first thing is to cut off the diagonals so that the king goes on towards the corner of the board, and the next thing is to cut off the squares so that the king cannot escape, and the most important thing among both of them is our king has to be in a position to control the opponent's king. Okay, so this is the whole intention behind playing a king and bishops. So two bishops, when we look at from a practical perspective, like we don't end up having it as a common ending because like it is quite rare we get these kind of positions of having king and double bishops against a king. But what we need to understand is the power of two bishops. Okay, the power of two bishops, like this is kind of an example where you can see how the two bishops are taking control of the diagonals. Okay, the long diagonals, how it is taking control of, and how it is taking control of the squares, how it is cutting off. So this is a prime example where we can understand the power of two bishops. I hope you have enjoyed the video. See you in the next video. Thank you.